if I want to watch animated television, things are pretty easy now. They were getting easier when my daughter was young. You can download animated television. At our fingertips, we have almost the entire sum of animated television and movies ever created available to us, whether it's downloading, streaming, physical media, dozens of different streaming channels, thousands of cable channels, some specializing in animated television 24/7. But let me tell you about a time before streaming, before DVRs, before cable had these thousands of channels. There was one block of time to rule them all. One block of time that was special, that was something you did not miss, and that was Saturday morning cartoons specifically. And if you weren't planted in front of that TV by 6 a.m., you weren't just missing out. You were breaking a sacred ritual. I'm here to tell you why Saturday morning cartoons weren't just television. They were appointment television. And for Gen X kids like me, they were basically church. Let's go back in time. And for me, that's quite a while back. It's 1977, maybe early 1978. I'm 6 years old. I'm living in an old red house in the middle of pretty much nowhere with my family. I have a younger brother, 2 years younger than me, and we have this routine down to science. 6 a.m., like clockwork. No alarms needed. We'd wake up in that pre-dawn darkness, drag our thick blankets and pillows downstairs to the living room, and we'd take our positions. This wasn't casual viewing. This was a military operation executed by kids who had just a few years earlier learned to tie their own shoes. The first order of business, sustenance. We'd make ourselves toast with butter and honey. Now, you're probably wondering, what about the Fruit Loops? Where's the Count Chocula? Where's the Captain Crunch cutting the roof of your mouth? Not in our house, I'm afraid. See, Dad was a bodybuilder, and in his house, sugar cereal was contraband. No tricks, no Lucky Charms, no marshmallow-laden goodness, anything. So while we sat there watching commercials for Fruity Pebbles and dreaming impossible cereal dreams, we had our ritually approved toast with honey. And you know what? We didn't complain, because complaining meant getting kicked outside earlier. Bundled up in those blankets, toast in hand, we would watch the lineup. But let me tell you guys, what a glorious, glorious lineup it was. For us, of the big three, we preferred Scooby-Doo. And the big three being NBC, ABC, and CBS. Sure, you had your local channels. We sure did in Canada here. But coast to coast, that was what most of us were watching. Scooby-Doo and the Gang. Mysteries that always turned out to be some guy in a mask. Laff-A-Lympics, one of my absolute all-time favorites, which was basically the Olympics if every competitor was a Hanna-Barbera character. And if you don't know Hanna-Barbera, well, we'll do an episode on that one day. But let me tell you, they were absolutely special. And they are the reason we have Scooby-Doo, Captain Caveman, the Teen Angels, and so much more. We also had Super Friends, where Aquaman somehow kept getting invited despite basically being useless on land. Captain Caveman, as I mentioned, screaming his way through prehistory. Plastic Man bending in ways that would hospitalize a normal human. This was the buffet. This was the feast. And you consumed it all because you had to. There was no pause button, no watch later, no on demand. If you missed it, it was gone until next Saturday. Maybe you'd catch a rerun in a few months if you were lucky. That's what made it appointment television. The scarcity created the value. That's the nature that made it so precious. And here's something that younger generations might not understand. You know, if you've got your YouTube Premium and you're watching a kid's channel, if you're streaming and watching animated stuff, you're probably not watching commercials, particularly commercials that interrupt the animated experience. But for us, they were part of the experience. Let me tell you about toy commercials, especially the Star Wars ones, which were always my favorite from Kenner. They were like mini movies. I remember watching the kids in the land speeder commercial like it just happened.
It's the new Star Wars land speeder.
Wow, looks like it's floating. People are coming. It's up to Luke Skywalker and his land speeder to get us out.
Action figures each sold separately.
It was a 30-second movie pilot, and the promise was there for me to be the pilot of that land speeder in my own movie, a movie of my own direction. The production value, the way they made those toys look like they were actually speeding across planets. It was an art form. Sure, were we being manipulated? 100%. Of course we were. But it was as honest of manipulation as you could get. They knew we were kids. We knew we were kids. And we sat there daydreaming about toys and cereals that we couldn't have. And somehow that was fine. Those commercials sold us a lifestyle, an identity. They told us what the cool kids could have and had, what cool kids ate, what they played with. And if we couldn't have all of it, couldn't have any of it, in my case with cereals, we were part of the culture just by watching. And of course, this spawned into endless, Mom, Dad, can I have for Christmas? It was actually pretty genius, if not, like I said, pretty sinister, right? Then came that dreaded moment. For us, usually 10 or 11 a.m. Sometimes earlier. Like I said, if Dad was feeling particularly motivated, he'd wake up, come downstairs, turn off the TV, and say, get outside, go play. And that was it. The ritual was over. The TV went off. You were evicted from the house, expected to entertain yourselves outdoors until dinner time. There was no negotiation, no, but I'm in the middle of, nope, outside now. And this was the Generation X experience in a nutshell. You had your structured time, your Saturday morning appointment with the TV, and then you had your unstructured time where you were expected to figure it out by yourself. Make up games, ride bikes, build forts, get into minor trouble. That wouldn't get you arrested, always, but might get you grounded. After all, we were latchkey kids in training, self-sufficient from the age of 5 or 6. So why does any of this matter? Why am I, a 53-year-old man, talking to you about cartoons from nearly 50 years ago? Because Saturday morning cartoons were a shared cultural experience in a way that doesn't really exist anymore. Every Gen X kid from coast to coast, Canada or the US, was watching basically the same set of shows, or basically the same set of 3 possibilities. We were all seeing the same commercials, all being sold the same dreams. So when you went to school on Monday, you didn't have to ask, did you see that episode? Of course they saw the episode. Everyone saw the episode. It created a common language, a shared mythology, a shared bond. And that scarcity, that appointment nature made it special. It's cliche to say you had to be there. You really did, though. You couldn't binge it later. You couldn't stream it on demand. You either showed up at 6 a.m. with your toast and blanket, or you missed it. And it was that anticipation, that commitment, that ritual. It made those cartoons more than just entertainment. It made them an event, a tradition, a defining characteristic of our childhood. So sure, today kids have access to infinite content anytime they want. And that's great. That's progress. I'm not here to say the old way was better. I use the new way. I'm able to create a, Plex theme, 4 hours of streaming with commercials and recreate my childhood that if I'm feeling a little nostalgic for the old days, I can play in the background while I'm working on videos, playing video games, etc. But it was different. And for those of us who lived it, who dragged those blankets downstairs at 6 a.m., who ate our approved breakfast foods while dreaming of forbidden cereals and toys, who got kicked outside to fend for ourselves, Saturday morning wasn't just TV. It was a ritual that defined the start of our weekend. It was an appointment you didn't miss. It was, in our own weird way, sacred. For me, a massive source of nostalgia that I can lean into and just appreciate my upbringing. What about you guys? What was your Saturday morning ritual? Drop a comment below, and if you want more deep dives into Gen X nostalgia, hit subscribe, hit like, let me know what you'd like to see below. Until the next video, guys, cheers.